Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our main event, our main sessions. I'm Nancy O'Neill. I'm the Associate Director of the Kerwin Center and tag teaming with MJ this afternoon. And I'm delighted to introduce our next vendor demo presentation. A couple things before that. I would ask everyone who is participating but not speaking to please mute themselves, and to use the chat function if you have questions as we go through the demo, and our presenters will either be able to answer that kind of in time, or we'll reserve some Q&A time at the end. So please mute yourselves and use the chat function for your questions. I'd like to introduce Mary Ellen Rahn, who is with McGraw-Hill Higher Education. She's going to introduce her colleagues who will be speaking with her today. And I'm going to drop into the chat the McGraw-Hill one-pager so that you have a chance to look that over as the group is talking. So, Mary Ellen, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I just want to applaud all of you for taking time out of your busy summer schedules to join today, and applaud you for all your efforts that you're taking to stay connected with students through the spring and as you prepare into what your instruction will look like for the fall. And we just want to share that we look forward to partnering with you in any way that we can support your efforts. At McGraw-Hill, we have a few different platforms that serve multiple disciplines. The first one that you're going to hear about is more of our Connect suite of platform, which involves many disciplines across the board, and we'll be speaking more to some of the adaptive solutions and also our partnerships with the Online Learning Commission. And then we'll move into our math and chemistry adaptive solution, which is ALEX. And we will close up with a student sharing their experience and how having more personalized learning tools has helped them in their course area. So I'm gonna first introduce you to Patrick Soleymani, and Patrick joins us from George Mason University, where he's the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Programs and the Associate Professor of Management. And Patrick's an award-winning professor in the field of organizational behavior, principles of management, and entrepreneurship. And he has partnered closely with McGraw-Hill in his courses and also in partnering with the Online Learning Commission. So Patrick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Appreciate it. Appreciate the introduction, and I echo your sentiments. Thank you, everybody who has taken time out of this crazy time in the summer to join us and learn a bit about adaptive. As Mary Ellen mentioned, I am at George Mason University, right down 495 for those of you in the Maryland system. Did go to law school in Maryland, in Baltimore, so Maryland's near and dear to my heart. Well, I know I only have 20 minutes and I want to be respectful of your time. So I wanted to very quickly talk about my experience using the Connect platform, particularly the adaptive side of the platform. And what I'll do is I will start by sharing my screen with a quick slide. I'm not a big slide person, I'm more of a show and tell, but I do want to start with just a quick slide as a backdrop for why I think the adaptive is so important. You know, we're all facing issues when it comes to students being career ready. That's been an issue for so many years. And now with COVID, with online classes, with folks not being or not having planned to teach online and students not having planned to do many classes online, it's become that much more difficult. For me, what's been really important is to be able to develop career ready graduates. And that includes making sure that they have those critical skills of critical thinking and problem solving. And I do a lot of that through the Connect platform. I can't show you all of that in 20 minutes, but what I do want to tell you is all of the great stuff that's available through the platform, video cases, simulations, case analyses, all that great stuff, in my opinion, are not possible without the adaptive reading that takes place before any of that happens. And the reason for that, and by the way, hi everybody who was with me on the brown bag about an hour ago, because the reason for that is because I was just talking about an hour ago with folks about Bloom's taxonomy. And I had to stop because we were running out of time, so I'm hoping everybody's able to join here from that brown bag, because the lower order thinking skills of Bloom's taxonomy are really important for students. We need to remember, we need to make sure that they can remember and understand material before we try to take them too far out into the deep end of other types of concepts. And how do we do that? Well, for me, it's through adaptive reading on the Connect platform using SmartBook. And as Mary Ellen mentioned, I teach management and organizational behavior. And I've incorporated SmartBook into my classroom as sort of a first pass at the reading. And I mentioned to some of you on this call about an hour ago that before I had adaptive reading, I would, like many of you, just assign the reading. I would say today's reading is on chapter 3. Please make sure that's been completed before we come to class, or online before you do other types of activities. And folks would say, okay, right? They'd look at me, I thought that it was fine. And then I wouldn't know until an exam or something with a high point value that, uh-oh, they're not getting parts of this chapter. And now the conversations would change, because it wouldn't be about getting a good grade in the class. It would be about, well, I just did a really bad job on the first exam. Can I pass this class? And I don't want it to get to that, right? I want to make sure that I have a pulse on my face-to-face, or in today's world, very much online class. And adaptive helps me to do that. So just a real quick, let's think about the highlights of the adaptive reading. I'm going to show you something from my management course. I'm using the Kanicki Management 9th edition. And this is the adaptive reading for chapter 3. And it's pretty much an ebook in the beginning, but there is an adaptive engine that's behind it that's really remarkable. So if I'm a student, I'm going through the reading, I'm able to see areas that are highlighted, that are key areas that I need to focus on, and move through concepts and move through pages. And what happens is I am served up questions that come up. Now, these are lower level questions. I call them prompts. I'm not really here with these questions to quiz or test my students. I'm just trying to understand, do they remember and understand the material they just read? And if they don't, what about it is problematic? Because that will now allow me, for the rest of the week or for the next session or whatever it may be, to try to fix those issues. What I'm now becoming is a coach that's able to look at problems with my athlete and figure out how to develop those particular skills, or how to fine tune those things. So a student would go through something like this, they would quickly answer, they would say what their confidence is, and they go to the next question. A lot of this is going to be, again, lower levels. This confidence meter is interesting because they can tell me how confident they are in their answer. And hopefully my responses on this doesn't mean that that I'm not fit to teach it, as I am guessing. But if they keep getting things wrong, they have to go to the actual resource for the question. They have to read about the concept. But what's happening here is, between their reading and between them answering questions, the system is determining where they are. And it's able to serve them up questions on concepts that they're struggling with, and then ascertain if they're doing well. So again, it is adapting, right? Which is important. So what we can then do with the material that we have gained is students and faculty are able to see the results of the reading. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my student activity, and I'm going to have a dashboard here that's available for me. And this dashboard allows me to see how students are doing in terms of how many have actually done the reading, how long did it take them, what concepts may have been challenging. And so this is going to be really helpful for me. Keep in mind that before the adaptive reading, I didn't even know if my students had read. Now what I'm able to see is not only who's read, but what portion or population of my students is having problems with specific areas. Here we see that most of the issues are with an ethical dilemma or economic forces, or all of those types of things. And then it allows me to try to address that in a lecture, in a video, in some sort of a follow-up activity, which I think is really important. It also gives me other tidbits of information. The amount of time that it took for students to complete the reading compared to the estimates. And as you can see, I'm right here in the beginning for this, in the middle for this
Hey,
chapter.
Patrick.
But yeah.
Hey, Patrick. I think everyone's just seeing your Bloom's screen. So.
Oh, is that what happened?
That's all right.
Thanks for interrupting me. I can't see anything on chat, so can you
it's
see
hard.
the screen now?
Perfect. Yes, we can see it now.
Perfect. I usually use WebEx, and I thought if I share one part of the screen, they'll see everything that I move over. So thanks for letting me know that. So hopefully everyone can see my dashboard now.
Yes.
And so again, really quickly, now that you can put a visual with the concepts, this is where I can see the number of students that had a problem with a specific area of the content. I'm able to see how long it took here. It provides me with the number of questions, how long it took them to complete. I'm able to see how many learners actually did it. And this is great because I'm seeing in my classes between a 79 and a 92% completion with my students, which I think is really great. I can go individually, put in a student's name and see how they did here and get more information on that particular student. And what I do is I give a very small point value for students to complete this because of the information that it provides me, such rich information. I'm able to actually see all of this. And just because I want to go back and just show you what the student sees, because I know you weren't able to see that because my screen didn't move over, but this is what the student would actually be seeing. This is the actual ebook that's available with the adaptive engine. And these are questions that come up that students can respond to, put the confidence interval, and then move next. So these are the lower level Bloom's type questions that are available for them. So there's a couple of things that I think is important based on my discussion, especially with some of you in the brown bag about an hour ago. This, of course, is not OER material. I mentioned this in our discussion because I think it's important that there's a balance, right? There's a balance between cost, but also quality. I'll go back to the point that it's very important that we develop career-ready graduates because that's what the workplace is telling us they need. And there's a very significant skills gap, as many of you know that. So quality is going to be very important. Many of you on the brown bag call mentioned about errors and omissions and issues with OER content. And I think that's an important point, especially when it comes to things like questions and material that's there. Of course, this material is vetted, one, by an authoring team through McGraw-Hill, but also subject matter experts, such as myself, is going through this material question by question to make sure quality control is there, to make sure that there's the proper amount of feedback for students so that when they go through it, they're able to ensure that they understand why they got something wrong or why they got something right. And of course, this whole adaptive engine is a significant investment on the publisher's part to ensure that the technology and the algorithm and all of that is there. So I just think that's a very important point to make. And the adaptive system through Connect is really based on ensuring that students are reading, practicing, and also performing. So what I do is I assign them the adaptive reading, and I'm going to make extra sure that everybody is able to see my screen. So I'm going to move here to Blackboard, and hopefully everybody can see that I'm in Blackboard. And I'm going to have you all see that this is how my typical course looks like. I go through modules, and in the module, the adaptive reading is up front. Students then do that. They watch a short lecture, then they do an assignment. The assignment is where they're really executing on what they've learned in the adaptive. And as they're doing that, as they're working on the assignment, I'm reviewing their adaptive results to see how they performed on specific concepts. So what's happening again, I'll come back to this slide, is they're moving here on the understand and remember. They're moving up to the taxonomy through different assignments that are in Connect. Some of them are click and drag, some of them are self-assessments, I see it videos. But what's happening is I am slowly guiding them up Bloom's taxonomy in every module. And what I'm trying to ensure is that once a student completes a module, the student has hit higher levels of learning, the evaluate and the analyzing, because I want to ensure that they're able to master critical thinking and problem solving. Because in the real world, they don't walk out and look at a problem and say, oh, I wonder what theory covered this and what the stages and the steps were. No, they have to be able to apply, analyze, and evaluate. And they need to be able to say, okay, I see what's happening here. And with the information that I have, the data, the evaluation, whatever it may be, I can review and make decisions and think critically about problems. And all of that starts with the adaptive. Once the adaptive is complete, I can then move into other types of assignments. I can move into things like simulations to try to show students how to work things in the real world. I'll show you here a video, right? And this is management perspectives in the hospitality industry with questions here. You know what I think is really great is to use the adaptive to diagnose the problem that students may be having, to then go through questions that are provided from another source of materials, like a video or a case, and see if students are doing better, because everything is tagged in this world, right? So you're able to go see how students are doing on every single question, see how that lines up with how they did in the adaptive, so on and so forth. And I think that's extra important to be able to close the loop. And you know, I know that another challenge that was brought up is academic integrity in an adaptive world. Well, you know, though, and I mentioned this an hour ago, this is something that's publisher agnostic, OER agnostic. I mean, academic integrity issues are a problem for everybody. The Course Hero or Chegg or other types of issues. One way that I've found to be able to attack that, of course, is by using different tools like Respondus, moving questions around. The fact that the adaptive reading on SmartBooks serves up questions for where students are struggling, I think because it's so customized, that also takes away from issues with cheating. But I think there's another fundamental issue here. Students many times resort to cheating when they can't understand the material in any other way, and they just decide that what they're going to do is to get the answer. And I think the more that we're able to provide them with information in an adaptive way that shows them what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and why, and they can learn from that without having to expend a lot of effort and without having to get penalized with points too much, the better the chances are that they will actually go through the material and decide not to try to Google answers, especially on low stakes assignments. So I think that is an extra important thing to bring up here. So again, read and practice through the SmartBook reading, and then use other types of Connect tools. And you know what, since I have a moment, I want to show you one particular Connect tool that I think is very helpful on the practice side. and that is one of these simulations here. And I'm choosing an aviation one, because there was a gentleman, Chris Hartman, in the brown bag, who is from the aviation school and was looking for material on aviation. And I think this is a good one to show. This is a simulation. So after students have done the adaptive reading, they're able to actually take that and actually able to look at graphs, charts, pieces of information, to analyze that, to answer questions based on that. So here you're looking at on-time performance for an airline, maintenance issues with an airline, all of that. But what I think is really important is if the students aren't going through adaptive reading, they're not able to look at this, right? A lot of times we jump onto the deep end and try to get students to do exciting things like simulations and other types of critical thinking and problem solving based assignments, but we haven't reinforced their understanding of the basics. So in essence, if we think of this taxonomy, we get excited and we jump here. Now, I applaud folks for jumping here, because a lot of my colleagues don't even make it up here. They go here and they give an exam and they call it a day. So it's great that we're doing that. But I think adaptive reading is going to be really important, because we have to make sure they're getting it here. And we have to make sure that before the week ends or class ends or the module ends, that we're able to ensure that they've mastered this area. And then we move forward. So I don't know if there's any particular questions, or Mary Ellen, how you want to work out the next couple minutes, but I wanted to make sure there was some time.
I think we'll go ahead and save questions to the end. And I know my colleague Ruth is monitoring the chat, so we'll continue to answer there until we can move through the other session. So okay. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Sure, perfect. And just one more thing that I see the questions coming, which is great. We'll address those in just a moment. Personally, for implementation of all of this, I can just speak from my side as an instructor. I was able to work with an implementation specialist through McGraw-Hill to make sure everything was sound. You know, one big problem nowadays is a lot of us aren't used to teaching online. We need help with setting these things up. McGraw-Hill was a great help with that. And I think it's equally as important that we're able to put in not just adaptive, but experiential adaptive types of exercises. And that's all in the Connect suite. There's also an online learning partnership, an OLC partnership that McGraw-Hill was part of. I was able to get through the certification on that. And a lot of the folks that would help with implementation have gone through that process and know some of the best practices on the online side. So I just wanted to make sure that all of that was brought up as well. And with that, I'll pass it over.
Yes, thanks, Patrick. Your point on implementation is right on, and that's really where we see our opportunity to partner with you beyond just vendors, but we want to be there to support you and train your colleagues, your department, to feel confident and to really, be able to evaluate and set up a course that you can control and work to get to know your students better. So without further ado, we're going to talk about Alex. And then Elena from Bowie State in your system is going to share her experience. She's a newer user to Alex. Alex is rooted in 20 years of research and analytics, and really one of the first adaptive products to market, especially in math. And our goal is to help you get to know students better and provide that equitable support required for all students to catch up and finish together. And within one solution, we're going to help you design and control a course with personalized learning to prepare students, especially those that are underprepared, and your choice of assignments and assessments that align to your approach. And then we're also going to support you with actionable insights to help you get to know your students better and create more of those light bulb moments. So whether you're teaching online, face-to-face, hybrid, it's all about those light bulb moments that keep us going. So just a little bit of background on Alex. It stands for Assessment and Learning and Knowledge Spaces. And it was developed by cognitive scientists, software engineers, mathematicians, and educators who really wanted to break the mold of standardized assessments in traditional classrooms. So using groundbreaking research in knowledge space theory, this group of pioneers in adaptive learning designed an efficient way to measure students' knowledge to provide them with a personalized, meaningful learning experience. And Siri is asking me a question. So basically, Alex started first as theory, and then we developed it into a product, and students and instructors have been using it for many years now, and we're excited to share more. The first experience that students have in Alex is an initial adaptive diagnostic. And this is an opportunity for an equitable start for all students. So whether they're coming into the course already having an understanding of a good amount of the topics, or maybe they're coming into the course, you know, with a lot of prerequisite gaps, Alex wants to know that. We want to know what the student already knows, what they don't, and then we want to efficiently give them what they're ready to learn next. So we acknowledge that students come in with a variety of backgrounds, and we want to provide that personalization and the support to get them through the course within the confines and the structure that the instructor has set up. So students take this 30 question or so. Again, it's adaptive. So the questions adjust as students put their short answers in, and we're constantly refining on the back end how two topics connect. And as you know, in math and chemistry, the topics continue to build upon each other. So we're looking on the back end and we're refining our algorithm on the back end to make sure that we can figure out that perfect knowledge state that your individual student's in, so that we can continue to work with them through their personalized path. So with Alex, there's a dynamic cycle of learning and assessment. So students take that initial knowledge check. We present them with their pie, the Alex pie, which students love, and I'm sure Jacy will talk about that here in a minute. And we are going to present them with topics that they're ready to do next. So Elena has probably built an assignment that she wants students to work through 20 topics. You know, Jacy might be working through 18 topics. I might need to work through all 20 topics. I'm going to get credit for content that I already know based on that initial knowledge check and as I continue to work through Alex. I'm then going to get personalized practice and work through the topics that Elena has assigned to me. And it might take me, you know, 6 or 7 times to work through a topic. It might take Jacy 3 or 4 times. But we're working to make sure that the student understands the topic and can show a true understanding and not just learn it once and then move on. Alex provides a lot of positive reinforcement along the way to keep students motivated. And then we also want to make sure that students are remembering what they're learning. So after they spend a little bit of time in the system, we're going to give another knowledge check, which is really the art of retrieval practice in learning science, and we want to make sure that they're remembering what we give them. So this is the cycle of learning within Alex that you can implement, and I'm just going to show you a little bit of that. So we want to make sure that we're not boring students that, you know, have the preparation in the course. We want to make sure we're not overwhelming students that are underprepared. So with Alex, as they're working through the topics that the instructor has assigned, we're going to present each student with a topic that they're most ready for. And we call that ready to learn because we want to make sure that students have the prerequisite knowledge to be successful with what we present them with. And if you look at all of the courses that we support in math and chemistry, about 94% of the time we're correct and students learn the material. And then as students work through topics, we're looking for them to work through that topic, that algorithm, 3 or 4 times correct without additional help. We really want to prevent students from gaming the system, finding the pattern, and really making sure that they're learning the material. So we're really providing a nice framework and accountability for students to be working through the system and work towards that mastery. And in addition to this personalized path for students, you also have the control to build additional assignment types that might come from our textbooks or just taking static assignments from the Alex topics. So you can blend your non-adaptive assignments in addition to the adaptive assignments to really support your approach. So maybe you're teaching a prerequisite course in math and you want to use one of our textbooks and you want to use more of that traditional homework, but you really want to use the adaptive assignments to support students' preparation levels. You can do that in one single solution with ALEX. Or maybe you're teaching chemistry, Gen Chem, and you really just want to focus on the adaptive assignments, and you want to build those prerequisite skills up in the first few weeks of the course. You can do that all within one system within ALEX. So we've partnered with many schools, and just one example of how we're able to really provide that equitable support for students. We're starting to see with some of the case studies that we're looking at that schools are able to close equity gaps. And this is an example. Columbus State has implemented us with a co-requisite course. And if we look at their traditional course compared to their co-req with ALEX, you know, there was a 12-point gap between African-American students and white students. And then with the co-requisite course, they're implementing a lot of success initiatives in the course, flipped model, you know, working together in a group interactive environment, and then also using ALEX outside of the classroom. They've been able to close that gap. So they're really pleased that we're able to provide that individualized support, especially even within a co-requisite where there are wide ranges of preparation. And then also just another example, Indiana Bloomington, for chemistry, wanted to take a closer look at their intro chem course, which prepares students for Gen Chem. And they wanted to see, you know, if they could replace that intro course, the full semester course, with ALEX Prep, which was a 6-week access to prep material to prepare for Gen Chem. And they realized that students did equally well. A whole semester course compared to 6 weeks of ALEX Prep, where they didn't need to pay for tuition, they just paid for the cost of ALEX Prep. They noticed that students did equally well. This is a published study that we can definitely link to. So, and they also noticed that underrepresented minorities were overrepresented in that intro course, and with ALEX Prep, they're beginning to close achievement gaps in that Gen Chem course then. So Elena from your system is going to share a little bit more about their experience at Bowie and how ALEX has helped them in their courses. And we'll just make sure you're unmuted.
Yes,
Elena.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, perfect.
Hello, everyone. So I just briefly want to talk about how we transform developmental program at our university to adaptive learning, and I represent Bowie State University. We've been using ALEX for probably like 3 years, but more extensively, we had a pilot last year, but this school year, 1920. So we expanded it to a larger project. So basically, why did we decide to use adaptive software? We have an issue in the university, and probably many of your universities share a similar problem. About 80 to 90% of our freshmen placed into developmental math. So the traditional approach that we used for years included putting the students into 4-credit developmental course, which took them 1 semester, and then after they completed this course, they will move to college level course, the 2nd semester. Unfortunately, we had very high levels, failing rates in that course, multiple retakes, once, twice, 3 times, until even the department will give up and say, okay, move to the next course. And again, once, twice, 3 times failing. We were thinking, we knew some schools go to co-requisite option. Some schools abandoned placement completely and put into college level course. So we decided to kind of redesign the whole program. We looked at overlapping topics between the developmental course and college level course, let's say college algebra, calculus, and we noticed that certain topics are overlapping, so they study them in one course and then in another. All of these overlapping, retakes, of course, delay the graduation. So we decided to implement what we call A+8 pilot. Can you please switch to the next slide? So called 8+8. So the goal was, we wanted the students to complete their Gen Ed math requirement within the 1st semester at BSU. And the goal was connected to some programs that were running in Bowie, some grants that had the requirement for students to complete it during the 1st semester. We designed 3-credit course that would use adaptive software. In this case, it was ALEX. removed overlapping topics between this developmental course and college level course, and instead including topics from pre-algebra. So early topic, because we noticed that some students were not even ready for the course that we were placing. All of this was possible because we used that adaptive software. So the students, because of the software was adaptive, were able to review only the topics that they need versus everything. So instead of doing all 1,000 homework that were assigned, students had different, they were focused on those topics that they know and just polish their skills. As a result, we had like the first 8 weeks, the students were able to complete developmental course, and the second 8 weeks, they will finish college level course. Because both courses use the same software, it kind of was a smooth transition from one to another, no overlapping. They just want to finish the first portion and then move to another portion. If you can switch to the next one, please, Mary. Yes, so how did we implement? So we basically scheduled all classes in computer labs, and we used flipped around classroom approach. As Mary was describing with Alex, each students get tested and they have their own path. So we kind of went away from traditional lecture approach to that flip around. The students will take initial knowledge check, and it creates a path for every student on what they have to work on. They will utilize in classroom the help from instructor, and we also scheduled our tutors to be in the classroom. So we had a tutoring lab that students could attend as well, but it was important for us to tutors to be in the classroom. When they work on the software, they would get a help from us. Instead of lectures, we organized workshops based on specific topics. What was important was that using the software, we were able to pull the reports similar to what Patrick showed, and it described us which topics the majority of the class is struggling for. And we're able to organize workshop based on that specific topic. We also were able, using this initial testing, which I think this is one of the greatest part of the software, that tells us exactly what the students know and what they don't know during the first class. We're able to identify students who were placed incorrectly. What I mean incorrectly, they took placement tests, they were placed into developmental math, but they were able to do a high level math. So maybe they had a bad day, maybe they didn't prepare, that they didn't take that placement test seriously. So we were able to look at the results of the initial test and advise them and move them to the college level course. We also allow students to work ahead of the schedule. So if they had just small portion that they had to work on before they take college level course, they were able to complete that initial part faster. We allow them to take the final exam, and we move them for the college level. Then in this case, instead of 8 weeks, they could have 10 weeks, 12 weeks. We had students who actually like completed the whole developmental part in 2 weeks, because they kind of like had initial knowledge, but just little gap that prevented them from being placed into college level course right away. The feedback that we're getting from faculty that worked with Alex, and we had like a set of faculty that we trained and really got into this idea. It was an adjustment for everyone, since it was like totally different type of teaching without lectures and everything. So the faculty observed that the students actually learning through this repetitive, and they were getting these knowledge checks after, like Mary said, after so many hours. So, and usually in class, the students will ask, can you give us a practice test? Can you give us a review test before test? Well, using the software, the students were tested so many times and pushed to review things. It was actually like the same test they took at home, right? So they didn't feel like something different, didn't feel stressed out. So that was like really helpful. And I just want to share a little bit of data.
Yeah, and we just have like a minute here. Carey, Elena, so we
Yeah.
can have Jacy share. I know we need to finish at the top of the hour.
Okay,
So.
just the comparison between
Yep.
these two classes. If you see our like success rate, we count ABC grades, went up during the pilot. So for fall and for spring, spring 99, I didn't get the data yet. And the next slide just shows for 90, if you look fall comparison with the spring. So we actually achieved 78% rate of students who finish math course within 1 year. And if you see about in one semester, 78% passed 90 and 59% passed college level course within one semester. Thank you.
Thanks,
If any
Elena.
questions?
And I know your transition to using Alex remotely.
Oh, yes.
Well,
Yes.
too. Yes.
Sorry.
Yep.
Once COVID started, we moved online and we found it was really, really useful for us. It really works well in like unsynchronized option. And we decided that in fall, all our low-level math courses gonna utilize Alex. We use also Responders Monitor, which is connected to Alex, which help us to video proctoring of our tests. So yes, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Elena. And now Jacy, a student, she's in her second year studying international business at University of Tulsa. She's had experience using our adaptive solutions at McGraw-Hill, and we wanted to share her perspective. So I think just unmute, Jacy. Yep, perfect.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about how Connect and ALEX programs can really strengthen the relationship between students and professors, and how important I believe that is now that we are switching to virtual and hybrid classes. So to backtrack a little bit, I have used both Connect and ALEX programs in my Spanish and math classes respectively. And as we have mentioned, they both use an algorithm that pinpoints a student's specific weak spots and kind of over focuses on that so that we can have a level playing field. And this ensures that all of us students do have all of the same opportunities. None of the students are left behind. And that is because we can go in through the Connect and ALEX programs and see specifically what questions we're missing, what topics and categories we're missing within the lesson plan. And the professors are also able to see the same thing as well. They can see on an individual basis, if a student comes to office hours, where their mindset is and why they're struggling with something. And on a class-wide basis, they could tailor their lesson plan in order to really truly incorporate their overarching learning goals that they are attempting to achieve. And normally I believe that we could do this just through student participation in class, but now that that opportunity is being significantly minimized because of online learning, we do have to have a little bit of extra cushion in order to exercise all of these different learning aspects that we need as students. And so Connect and ALEX programs provide these different exercises by making sure that the students understand and really retain the information rather than just recalling facts. They are actively utilizing the information. And so for me, I came into TU with 6 years of learning Spanish under my belt, but I could not speak it. I was able to read and write it, but that was just a learning block that I couldn't overcome. And so with Connect, my professors were able to see specifically why it was that I had this learning block and how we could overcome it. And so outside of just 3 times a week in class, I practiced using Connect. And within just a year, I have mastered the Spanish manifestations of all the grammar aspects that have allowed me to speak it fluently. And this definitely helped me a lot because Connect, through the assignments, they give you multiple tries and you can go back and see what questions that you missed within your assignment and fix that rather than just knowing that you missed it and not understanding why you missed it. We were able to really delve into the foundations and how we did that. And that is something that just 6 years of textbooks and flashcards on Quizlet could not achieve for me, but the adaptive learning did do that for me. And so I believe, of course, that learning is a joint effort between the students and the professors, and that, you know, the students do need to exercise all of this outside of class, and the professors are trying to understand the mindset and where the student really is within classes, and Connect and ALEX programs really build that bridge of a relationship for us so that we can understand where the other one is at in order to really achieve those overarching learning goals.
Thank you so much, Jacy. You perfectly explained that interaction that I know all of the folks on the call are working to achieve, and we certainly wish you the best of luck as you continue in your college years and onto your career. And thank you so much for all of the presenters in sharing how McGraw-Hill can continue to be partners as you navigate the next few weeks and prepare for fall, and how we can help you work to get to know your students better and reach them so that we can provide equitable opportunities for all students.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I'll just echo my thanks to everybody who presented on behalf of McGraw-Hill. Really appreciate hearing your experiences. Again, there are links in the chat to email addresses and web resources from McGraw-Hill. If you have general questions or just want to touch base through us, you can also email cai@usmd.edu. And we'd be happy to put you in touch with folks at McGraw-Hill Education. So we have now a 15-minute break. And so if you joined us in